Chief cricket writer of the Sydney Morning Herald. It's been some fascinating yarns that Mal's written over the journey, and the journey may not be done. Justin Langer may be asked to reapply for his position as coach of Australia. He's written about it again today in the Sydney Morning Herald. It's great to have him on the program. G'day, Mal.
G'day, Jimmy.
Well, this is the gift that just keeps on giving. What further insight can you give us around that meeting between Cricket Australia's Ben Oliver and Nick Hockley and Justin Langer on Friday?
Well, in the slow and tedious process that Australia goes through to deal with these things, they met with Justin on Friday to canvass various scenarios with him, I suppose you would say, because they were taking a recommendation, recommendation might be too strong a word, but taking a paper to the board, the Cricket Australia board, this coming Friday. So, and amongst the options canvassed were the possibility of having to reapply for his job, which sounds like a weasel way of saying you're sacked, or alternatively taking a short-term contract to ease into some sort of transition, neither of which appealed to Justin at all, and Justin reacted in his usual way, which is to react quite strongly, as I've seen personally, having toured with the Australian team as a media manager in 2019. So I could just imagine the scenes that would have unfolded there. So, a difficult situation. My feeling has always been that Justin was basically a dead man walking since there was a player and support staff mutiny in August, that despite repeated efforts with Cricket Australia and the high-performance staff there, the message wasn't getting through that the tension was killing everyone, and eventually enough was enough, and Justin actually got moved aside. So my feeling from that point on in August was he was moved aside and then would be moved out after the Ashes. But Justin is a very tenacious player. It was his greatest asset, obviously, when he was a player. He worked really hard for about 8 years to establish himself as a frontline Test player, and then history obviously tells us that he and Matthew Hayden were the greatest opening pair or the most successful opening pair that Australia ever had, and part of Australia's most successful era, and had a lot to do with that, obviously. But could be an argument to say that Justin's greatest strength in that tenacity, and I'll show you guys, might be his greatest weakness, because he hasn't been reading the room.
What's the process like? We're on Tuesday morning. You're saying, Malcolm, that a recommendation will be put to the board on Friday. How do the next few days play out?
Well, that's a good question. The whole thing's been sort of dragging out for months and months now. I don't think there's going to be much happen in the next few days, apart from more speculation, because the next step, as I understand it, is the board discusses it on Friday, and I think there are probably mixed views there on whether there will be further discussion involved, or whether that there will be a feeling, look, guys, we've got to make a decision. This has dragged on too long, and a firmer action will be taken. I think that, if anything, this latest episode will speed the process up. Really, it's if there was sort of forward thinking at Cricket Australia and strong leadership, I think they would have realised that they had a problem that was an insurmountable problem. I mean, the thing they have to realise about cricket coaches is they're not football coaches. I mean, just ask yourself, who's the coach of New Zealand? I don't think anybody. In fact, you should offer a prize to anyone who hasn't got Google, who can actually ring in and tell you who the coach of New Zealand is, because he is Gary Stevens, the most sort of low-key, behind-the-scenes bloke you could ever meet. New Zealand are world Test champions, and but for a strange quirk of ICC rules, would be ICC World Cup champions as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think we have to realise that the leadership group are the people who do hold sway in cricket. It's been the same for 144 years. The captain's in charge of the team, basically.
Yeah.
And Justin never really came to terms with that, and that's led to an unfortunate fracture, which is a real shame, because Justin has done so much for Australian cricket over such a long period of time.
Inducted into the Australian Hall of Fame too, just a week ago. Who are the leading candidates, Mal, if he was to be replaced?
Well, there's a few furphies going around. The first one is, I saw it reported that that Neil Maxwell was Trevor Bayliss' manager and he also manages Pat Cummins. Well, that's just wrong. I mean, Neil Maxwell knows Trevor Bayliss, but only casually through cricket, and he's not his manager. There seems to be some sort of paranoia around, and maybe it was because Pommy Journos wrote it sort of during the tour, that Trevor Bayliss is sort of being angled to be put into the job. And look, 12 months ago when all this was sort of blowing up behind the scenes, there was some casual mention of, who would you get? Maybe Trevor because he's a calm bloke. But it never went further than that. I'm certainly not aware in all the phone calls and conversations I've had that Trevor Bayliss is in the mix. Now, look, he may be. Maybe I'm talking to the wrong people. But my understanding is the preference is that the structure basically stays the same, that everything's working really well with Andrew McDonald and Michael Divenuto as the sort of a senior assistant and assistant coach working with the team. And so it may be just a matter of giving them another assistant or two to help out and spread the load a bit rather than to have anyone who sort of comes in as some big figurehead. So I think that there might be a bit of a move for a minimalist change just because since Justin was forced to step back in August, things have actually gone really well. And look, Trevor may be involved, but I haven't heard that.
What sort of impact did Tim Payne's sudden departure have on Justin Langer and his relationship, I guess, with the playing group?
Well, it's an interesting one because you've got to remember that in August, the three leaders across the various teams, which was Tim Payne as Test captain, Aaron Finch as white ball captain, and Pat Cummins as vice captain, basically led the mutiny on behalf of the players and support staff. So, Tim, and look, I've seen this firsthand. Tim actually spent much of his time trying to be a conduit or a sort of a pressure valve between the coach and the players, where the players would come to Tim frustrated about various things, and Tim would say, "Look, leave it with me. I'll deal with it." And in the end, I think Tim got to the point where he's done his best. He's tried to deal with it, and he hasn't been able to deal with it. And Cricket Australia aren't doing anything about it. So we've got to take our own action here to try and sort things out. So, but having said that, I think that was on a very professional level. The players, this is a very difficult one. The players do have a lot of respect for what Justin's achieved in cricket and his place in Australian cricket. So this is not a personal, we hate Justin Langer. This is listen, his stint as coach hasn't worked. He's too intense. He's a micromanager. Everyone gets flattened, and eventually it sort of just wears people out. And I've seen it. I understand it. So it's not a personal thing, and there is a great respect for what Justin has achieved in cricket. And you can tell that the type of character that Justin is. He really felt for Tim the way Tim left the job. And as soon as Justin got out of quarantine, he at one stage he went and actually saw Tim Payne, and then again after the Test match in Hobart, he caught up with Tim as well. So certainly on a personal level, they get on fine, and Justin had really felt for Tim and the way that things unfolded for him. But on a professional level, it just clearly wasn't working.
Steve Waugh, Adam Gilchrist, Shane Warne, really interesting the timing of their voices in support of their old teammate in Justin Langer. I think Ricky Ponting's a really interesting one as well, Mal, because he's been inside a Justin Langer-led dressing room and he also endorsed his former teammate. What do you make of that, and what weight does that carry with Cricket Australia?
Well, Ricky Ponting is the interesting one. You're quite right. I mean, it's completely understandable that if you sort of run through brick walls together and you achieve great things together with people, then you're going to have great memories. And particularly what Justin did, the way he fought back to become, one of the central sort of linchpins in one of the greatest, or probably the greatest Australian Test team of all time. So it's completely understandable that the loyalty is going to lie with him. I mean, they've spent a lot of time together. For much of their careers, those guys spent more time together than they spent with their families. So there's very close bonds in a lot of those cases. Ricky Ponting is the interesting one. He was one of Justin Langer's sort of consultants/assistants on the 2019 World Cup, and was fantastic. The work he did over there, it's just a shame that Ricky can't be more involved in Australian cricket because he's tremendous around training. He's tremendous with advice, and you just have to listen to his commentary on TV to see how much he picks up and how quickly he picks it up and how simple he can make things in terms of what's happening and what he thinks should happen. So it's just a shame that he's in such demand across so many different areas that we don't see more of him in Australian cricket. But he is an interesting one because if you talk to players behind the scenes, they will tell you, some of them will tell you that they've spoken to Ricky about the Justin situation. So Ricky didn't mention anything right until the end of the season when the Ashes were actually over, and then he came out and endorsed Justin. And I reckon it would have been a real tug of war with Ricky between his loyalty to Justin, who he's very close to, and what he was told and what he saw when he was on tour. So, and again, look, you can't fault anybody who's loyal to a mate when you've done so much with them on such a big stage.
Does Justin Langer tour Pakistan, Malcolm?
Well, that's a very good question. Initially, I didn't think he was going to. The feedback, apart from anything else, the feedback I was getting some time back sort of out of the squad was that he didn't want to go. But then as the tour got closer, he sort of changed his tune and said, yeah, well, okay, I'll go to Pakistan. And I think that might have been more of I'm only guessing this, but I think that might have been more of a realisation. Well, hang on a minute. If I'm going to be coaching this, if I want my coaching tenure extended, I better put my hand up and continue to coach the team. That's just my summation of why he may have changed his tune. I don't know. But now, and this is fairly at the feet of Cricket Australia. They just kept kicking the can down the road saying, we'll make a decision at the end of the Ashes. We'll make a decision at the end of the Ashes. Well, now it's the end of the Ashes. We've got a Pakistan tour coming up. We still haven't got a decision, and we don't know whether we're going to get one at the board meeting on Friday.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
So the answer to your question is, I don't know. It's down to go. Cricket Australia is saying that the official line is that he is going. But I would imagine that if you are trying to get a contract extension and things weren't working out for you, but given that you've been away from home because of the WA quarantine laws since the end of September, so that's been away from home for months. He would then be away for another 2 months in Pakistan with no guarantee that he's going to get the job, or if he's not going to get the job, why would he go?
Yeah.
So, yeah, look, it's just another layer of the confusion that Cricket Australia have created by not being proactive.
It's an intriguing story, Mal. We can follow it across all your articles in the Sydney Morning Herald and much, much more. Really appreciate your time this morning, mate.
Cheers, Jimmy.